Americans are casting their ballots in what's being considered one of the closest presidential elections that country has ever seen. We're tracking developments from this side of the border and looking at what these results could mean for Canadians.
There is a command post in Etobicoke tonight for a missing woman whose lives with a life-threatening condition, medical condition. We have the very latest on the search efforts coming up.
And there is still time to enjoy this unseasonably warm November day as Toronto breaks a temperature record. But how long will it last?
This is Live at 5. Good evening, I'm Kayla Williams.
And I'm Lena Latafat. Thank you for joining us on Live at 5. We begin in the U.S. All eyes on that, of course. Voting continues south of the border as millions of Americans choose whether to send Donald Trump back to the White House or elevate Kamala Harris to the Oval Office. History will be made no matter what happens tonight.
Voters have mostly encountered a smooth process around the United States. Now, there have been isolated reports of some hiccups that regularly happen, including long lines, technical issues, and ballot printing errors. Now, more than 80 million ballots cast early, including record numbers in the battleground states of Georgia as well as North Carolina.
Kamala Harris stopped by the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee this afternoon in D.C. She thanked those who are phone banking for her campaign on Election Day.
And former President Donald Trump and his wife Melania voted in West Palm Beach, Florida today. Now, Trump says he will have a very special group of people at his Mar-a-Lago resort tonight to watch the election results. Supporters will also gather at a local convention center.
And Trump says he feels sure he is going to win.
I feel very confident. I have felt, we went in with a very big lead today. And it looks like Republicans have shown up in force. So we'll see how it turns out. But it seems that they have really shown up in force. I just got a call from Dan Patrick in Texas. He said they've never seen anything like it.
And this is the live shot of a polling station, one of many in the U.S. Of course, millions of Americans, they are going to have their voices heard tonight. The polls close at 8 o'clock tonight in 17 states, including Pennsylvania. At 9 o'clock tonight, polls close in another 15 states, including Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. The results from those battleground states could signal who will become the next president.
Well, Andrew Smith, political science professor at the University of New Hampshire, joined CP24 to talk battleground states like hotly contested Pennsylvania.
It's often been characterized as having Pittsburgh and Philadelphia with Alabama in the middle. So it's kind of very progressive, liberal, and democratic on the two ends, and very blue-collar, kind of Trump country in the middle. I think some of those more blue-collar towns in the state are going to be the ones to pay attention to. And by like a Scranton, Pennsylvania, or Jonestown in Pennsylvania, former mill towns, those towns that have kind of not gotten much of the economic growth in the last 20, 30 years. Those are the places that I pay attention to.
And Bruce Heyman, the former U.S. ambassador to Canada, spoke about the potential challenges Canada might face if Donald Trump wins.
I think Canada should recognize that the challenges with this agreement tend to be more with Mexico than with the Canada-U.S. relationship. But unfortunately, it's a three-part agreement. So if the U.S. does not sign back on to affirm the agreement in, a year and a half or so, then that will impact Canada. But the bigger issue is not the renegotiation of this deal. The bigger issue is Donald Trump's pledge to tariff all imported goods, which would then impact Canada directly and potentially make this agreement, effectively void.
And control of the U.S. Congress is at stake in today's vote. Both of the House of Representatives and the Senate could flip, which would impact how the next president will govern until the next congressional elections in 2026. Analysts say Republicans are likely to take back the Senate, where the Democrats currently hold a 51-49 majority, but they could lose their grip on the House, where Democrats only need to pick up 4 seats to take back control.
All right, there are hundreds of thousands of eligible U.S. voters right here living in this country, many of them in our city.
That's right. And for more on this, let's go live now to CP24's CJ Liu, who has been talking to some of those Americans. So, CJ, what have you heard so far this afternoon from those who are watching north of the border?
Well, the best way to describe how they're feeling is anxious, but also excited. That is what we are hearing from Canadians, but also Americans living here in Canada. And like you mentioned, that is a large number. Roughly 600,000 people who are eligible to vote in the U.S. are living in Canada, which is the largest number outside the U.S. and actually bigger than some states. Joining us live now with more on the importance of their vote and how they can make a difference in the U.S. election result is Jacob Wisoki with Democrats Abroad. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jacob. And a large number of Americans living here in Canada, and with the election being so close right now, how do you anticipate their vote will make a difference today?
Yeah, so voters from Canada, American voters living in Canada, could decide this election, full stop. This election is going to be extremely close. Like you said earlier, it is one of the closest elections in U.S. history. So every single vote will count. And there's 600,000 eligible U.S. voters living in Canada. They all can vote, and that's more than enough to sway this election. Many of them vote in key swing states such as Michigan, for example, just across the river in Windsor. There's 20,000 U.S. voters just in Windsor alone. So Americans in Canada can decide this election, and it's extremely important that every single one of their voices is heard and counted.
And historically, voter turnout amongst Americans overseas has been quite low. What has your team been doing over the past few months to make sure their ballots don't go uncast? And what has the reception been like?
Yeah, so we have been doing a lot of just outreach. We've bought a ton of billboards at every single major U.S.-Canada border crossing. We have been doing targeted ads on Google ads and other forms of advertisement. We've been doing podcast ads and just a lot of media and just getting out into communities, getting the word out that Americans living in Canada can vote from abroad. One of the biggest challenges for overseas voters isn't that they just don't want to vote, but it's that they don't know how to vote or they don't know that they can vote. So we've been doing a lot of work to clear up those misconceptions and let people know that American citizens living overseas have a federally protected right to vote.
And as we begin to watch the results pour in tonight, how are you and your fellow Democrats that you're talking to here in Canada feeling about this very close election?
I mean, like you said earlier, anxious, but also excited. There's so much at stake in this election. I mean, you have a candidate who wants to tear the country apart, inciting violence against his opponents, calling us the enemy from within. And you have another candidate who spent her entire career fighting for the people and wanting to give everyone a seat at the table. The choice could not be clearer. The stakes could not be higher. So we are very anxious because it is very close. But I have full confidence in Kamala Harris as a candidate. She's one of the most qualified candidates in U.S. history. So I'm extremely excited to watch her hopefully win this election. But at the same time, we probably won't know the results of the election tonight. So I'm fully expecting that Donald Trump might prematurely declare victory. He's already been saying, oh, yeah, we're definitely going to win. We have a clear advantage. We're going to win. And he doesn't know that. He's planning on prematurely declaring victory before all the votes are counted. So we are just urging everybody to make sure you get your election results from reputable sources like the Associated Press or official reports and not from Donald Trump himself.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Jacob. We appreciate your time today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
And that was Jacob Wisoki with Democrats Abroad. Them and as many Canadians and Americans all keeping a close eye on tonight's election. Back to you.
All right. Sija Liu reporting live and speaking to Americans in Canada for us tonight. Sija, thanks so much for this.
We're going to switch gears now and get a check on the commute this evening with CP24 traffic specialist Adjoa Nsia. How's it looking out there, Adj?
Very busy, Kayla, and it's a jam drive, especially on the westbound 401. And the reason, we're dealing with a long-standing problem. This is on the 401 westbound in the Express, just as you approach Avenue Road. Looks like the left lane and shoulder is blocked to this collision involving a transport. At least it's not the two left lanes anymore, but still remains very slow from well before Kennedy. Also, some problems. It's a stalled vehicle. This on the eastbound 401 in the collectors, just as you make your way past the Allen. It is the left lane block. Looks like they might be waiting on some tow or emergency crews. They haven't arrived on scene yet, but that is the reason for the backlog. And taking a peek at the Gardner, it is rush hour to be expected. Jammed as you make your way out of and actually head into the downtown core. Outside of camera view, if your travels take you towards Richmond Hill, just a heads up, Yonge Street shut down in either direction just north of Elgin Mills at Silverwood because of a serious collision involving a pedestrian. I'll send it back to you both.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Also making news tonight, one person has been critically injured after a collision in Brampton.
This is a look at the two-vehicle crash near Airport Road and Clark Boulevard. Now, according to Peel Police, they say one person was extracted from one of those vehicles. Two people have been injured, one taken to hospital with critical injuries and another with minor injuries. Now, road closures are in place for the investigation.
Police are searching for a missing Etobicoke woman tonight who lives with a serious medical condition.
CP24's Andrew Brennan joins us live from the command post with the very latest on this. Andrew, have you had a chance to speak to police, or have they been able to provide any sort of insight as of recently?
Nothing as of late, Kayla, Lena, which makes it all the more troubling with daylight leaving us now. This is a heavily wooded area. You're talking about not just Etobicoke Creek up here, but with this tributary of the Humber River, there's ravines down there. There's a lot of wooded areas and berms and almost marshy areas to search through, on top of just going through the creek and all of the backyards in this part, heading down from the valley towards the start of what is Etobicoke. The last sighting of this 33-year-old woman was reported over a day ago now. 33-year-old Sarah. I do believe we actually have a photo that we can put up on our screens now so people at home can see this person. Sarah is described as being about 5 feet tall. Police is saying that she has a heavier build. She was wearing jewelry last check, and also not only a blue winter coat, but a matching athleisure wear style top and black pants. Now, the major challenge here I mentioned was the terrain. The time crunch is because of what police say here.
Sarah has a medical condition that presents as life-threatening, and her family and the Toronto Police Service is concerned for her safety at this time. Currently, we have officers in the area conducting a ground search, and we have the use of a police drone assisting us, and we are going to expand that search.
Now, at this point, like I said, there's a lot of challenges searching in the dark here. There's been a Marine unit here. There's been horseback officers on horseback. And beyond that, ATVs to go through this wooded terrain, officers on foot as well. The search radius is also expanded and expanded, because you're talking about going through from north of where we are towards the bridge going over Dundas Street down to here. There's essentially square kilometers here of wooded area to go through. Police are asking people that live in this part of the start of Etobicoke on the eastern side, as well of the river as well into the old city of Toronto. If you maybe haven't checked outside your own backyard even lately, please do so, because they want to find this woman before it potentially is too late. I'll send it back to you both.
Okay, some good reminders there. CP24's Andrew Brennan reporting for us live. Thank you, Andrew. Time now is 5:14 and 22 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Rachel Chernows-Lynn is celebrating her win in last night's by-election in Don Valley West. We're going to have more on her plans at City Hall next. Welcome back. We are hearing more from former TDSB chair and trustee Rachel Chernos-Lynn after winning the Ward 15 Don Valley West by-election last night.
Chernos-Lynn will now join City Council as another left-leaning Liberal voice. Now, she had the backing of former Premier Kathleen Wynne and ran on investing in green spaces and community facilities, strengthening renter protections, and giving the community a voice in the development process. Rachel Chernos-Lynn joined us on CP24 Breakfast earlier today to talk about what her priorities will be at City Hall.
Traffic is a big one. Affordability and building maintenance, another big one, especially in Thorncliffe Park. Safety on the roads. It's the traffic that I talked about before, like the gridlock that everybody's talking about, but it's also safety driving through neighborhoods. There are a lot of people speeding through neighborhoods, sometimes out of frustration, but we want to make sure we have safe, walkable communities. And then another one, I would say a big one is development. There's an awful lot of very tall towers coming to our ward, and people want to make sure that they're getting infrastructure to go with it.
And Mayor Olivia Chow spoke about Chernos-Lynn's victory in Don Valley West during a news conference at City Hall today.
I've worked together with her before when she was the chair of the Toronto District School Board. And I know we can work together to deliver results for the good people of Don Valley West. She is very collaborative, she's positive, she's optimistic, and she wants to build housing, and she wants to have a good quality of life for people in Don Valley West.
Chernos-Lynn won with nearly 55% of the vote, while Anthony Furey finished second with about 31% of the vote.
Well, Toronto police have launched a traffic enforcement campaign focused on micro-mobility vehicles. Police say they've seen an increase in the use of e-bikes, e-scooters, and electronic one-wheeled vehicles. Devices all are prohibited from city roads. 16 people have been killed or seriously hurt while using a micro-mobility vehicle so far this year. Officers will be enforcing bylaws on these vehicles and educating the public about their use as part of the Safe Rides, Safe Streets initiative. That, by the way, wraps up on November 17th.
It is 5:18 and 22 degrees outside. This is Live at 5.
It will now be easier for veterans taking GO Transit. More on today's provincial announcement and who's eligible for this new initiative right after this. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Well, veterans will soon be able to ride GO Transit for free. The new transit relief program comes into effect on March 1st of 2025, and it also applies to and current full-time members of the Canadian Armed Forces.
These changes are in recognition of the servicemen and women who have done so much for our province and country. These changes would help a veteran traveling from Oshawa to Union for work every single day, almost $6,000 a year.
The province is also increasing the amount that eligible veterans and their families can receive through the Soldiers' Aid Commission to $3,000, up from $2,000. Now, that covers costs such as health expenses, home repairs, and moving costs, as well as personal items such as clothing for those in financial need.
Unique to our province, the Soldiers' Aid Commission has been providing veterans of all ages with financial assistance for over 100 years, since 1915. And that's why my ministry expanded the Soldiers' Aid Commission in 2021. That's why I directed our team with building today's important initiatives. Now, these enhancements will help the Soldiers' Aid Commission continue to support our heroes as well as their families as they transition to civilian life in communities across the province.
This boost in funding will help veterans pay for essential services and supports, things like health-related expenses, hearing aids, eyeglasses, home and housing-related items, repairs for rental costs, supplies for work, mental health services, and so much more. The government also intends to make it easier and faster for veterans applying. We're removing the last resort policy so that when veterans apply to the Soldiers' Aid Commission, they will no longer have to seek funding from other community sources before applying to the Commission.
The province is also expanding Health 811 to connect veterans to specialized services that meet their unique health care needs, including those in rural areas or those who may speak languages other than English and French.
5:22 and 22 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Well, it has been a really beautiful day here in our city. Currently sitting at 22, but it's feeling more like 25 out there tonight. We're going to have more on the record-breaking temperatures and what could be in store looking ahead.
Okay, well, you may have noticed the unusually warm temperatures today, even right now, sitting at 22 degrees. Now, the temperature reached 22.5 degrees Celsius at Pearson International Airport this morning, surpassing the previous high on November 5th of 20 degrees back in 1959.
And it's still feeling like 25
Incredible.
out there. Yeah. So for more on these record-breaking temperatures, let's turn to senior climatologist with Environment Canada, Dave Phillips. Good to see you, Dave. Thank you for joining us. Toronto just broke a 65-year-old temperature record. So take it away, Dave. What do you think?
Well, I love breaking records, especially when they don't hurt anybody. And this didn't hurt anybody. My gosh, 23.4 was the temperature I saw at 2 o'clock. Now, it may be, tomorrow morning, we'll know to get above 23.4. It smashed the previous record in Toronto. And you know what, guys? We were warmer than Nashville, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia today.
Wow.
And we've never seen a temperature. This really shocked me. We've never seen a temperature in Toronto warmer at any year in the last 87 years after this date. So in other words, any time after November the 5th or all of December, never a warmer temperature than Toronto got today. These are temperatures that would be typical for September the 2nd for a high, and for a low tonight. That's also shocking. Temperature tonight supposed to fall to 3. It's going to only fall to 18 degrees. That's the forecasted low temperature. I mean, that is 15 degrees warmer than should be. That would be a hot day in August, hot night in August. So It really is quite amazing. And do you know where it's coming from? All of these hot political winds blowing up from the United States.
Of course.
They got caught up in the jet stream, and they're coming right into Ontario.
Well, hey, look, we'll take it. We'll take it.
We will.
Absolutely.
I mean, even as you're talking, we're showing people in shorts, biking, going off for an evening stroll right now. But Dave, taking a quick look at the 5-day forecast, we know that these conditions are not going to last. So talk about the cold front that's going to move in later this week.
Well, Kelly, it's a cold front, but it's really more of a cool front. I mean, we see often these temperatures when it gets warm like this, it follows by some brutal kind of cold temperatures. These are going to be just seasonable temperatures, what you kind of expect. And then we see on Friday going up to 11 degrees. Hey, much colder than today, but still much more comfortable than you'd expect for this time of the year. I mean, we should be thinking about snow and deep freezes and polar vortex, but this is, oh my gosh, we're just not properly dressed for this. I think I'll turn my air conditioning on, turn my heat off, turn my air conditioning on. I mean, it really is. But, I don't think we can hold these temperatures. I think this is the end for these kind of soaring record type of temperatures. But, it's not over. What we see is what we're going to get. Temperatures that are going to be the rest of November warmer than normal. So enjoy it.
All right. Enjoy that while it lasts. Dave Phillips, always good to be with you. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you, guys.
watching Live at 5. There are still a few more hours left for Americans to cast their ballots in the critical U.S. election. We're going to have reaction from both sides of the border coming up.
Americans are casting their ballots in what's being considered one of the closest presidential elections that the country has ever seen. We are tracking developments from this side of the border and looking at what those results could mean for Canadians.
We're following a developing scene out of Brampton where one person is critically injured following a crash near Airport Road and Clark Boulevard.
And there is a command post in Etobicoke tonight for a missing woman who lives with a life-threatening medical condition. We will have the latest on the search efforts coming up.
You're watching Live at 5. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Latafat.
And I'm Kayla Williams. Welcome to Live at 5. Voting continues south of the border this hour as millions of Americans choose whether to send Donald Trump back to the White House or elevate Kamala Harris to the Oval Office. History will be made tonight no matter what happens. Now, voters have mostly encountered a smooth process around the U.S. There have been isolated reports of some hiccups that regularly happen, including long lines, technical issues, and ballot printing errors. More than 80 million ballots cast early, including record numbers in the battleground states of Georgia and North Carolina.
And Kamala Harris stopped by the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee this afternoon in D.C. She thanked those who are volunteering for her campaign on Election Day. Meantime, former President Donald Trump and his wife Melania voted in West Palm Beach, Florida today. Trump says he will have a very special group of people at his Mar-a-Lago resort this evening to watch the election results as they come in. Supporters will also gather at a local convention center. And Trump says he's feeling good and he feels like he is going to win.
We're going to have a very special group of people, many of whom you know, and they'll be at Mar-a-Lago. In addition, we'll have 4,000 or 5,000 people at the convention center. On the assumption I win, I mean, I don't know if something else happens. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of declaring victory, but if in normal times I would go over to the convention center, let's say at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or something, but I just don't know. It looks like we have a very substantial lead. It looks like we have many more Republicans voting today than Democrats. So if you have a lead and we have a bigger vote, that means you're doing very well, but they have to call a winner.
All right, so the voting process still continues. This is a live shot tonight from Langhorne, Pennsylvania, where, as you can see, many are still lining up to cast their ballots. Here's how this is going to go. The polls close at 8 o'clock this evening in 17 states, including Pennsylvania. All eyes on that key battleground state. At 9 o'clock tonight, polls close in another 15 states. That includes Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Now, those results from the battleground states could signal who will become the next president of the United States. Every ballot counts. And Bruce Heyman, the former U.S. ambassador to Canada, spoke to us about the potential challenges Canada might face if Donald Trump wins.
Canada is a country that really likes a little bit more certainty, respect for the rule of law, respect for our agreements with each other. Canada negotiates very hard with the U.S. with regard to trade deals. We saw that with the renegotiation of NAFTA. But what's at stake is a transactional leader who will not care about the bilateral relationship, just try to squeeze our allies, Canada in particular, for whatever he can get. And you will be directly impacted by many of our domestic policies. Unlike people in countries in Europe and Asia, you will be directly impacted by the immigration issues, the abortion issues, the environmental issues that this potential Trump administration would impose. And so it would be a difficult time between our two countries.
Senior investment advisor Alan Small joined CP24 this morning to discuss the potential impact of the election on Canada's economy.
Ideally, if we have a split, meaning no majority, the Democrats win the House or the Senate, and the Republicans win the House or the Senate, so there's a divide in Congress. To me, I think that works best for investors, for the economy. It would make things difficult to pass, yes, but at the same time, giving a majority, you possibly could be getting some of these increase in taxes or tariffs. So overall, I think a split Congress and a quick decision. If we have a decision by the time we wake up tomorrow morning, I think that would be best for everyone, for the economy, for the stock market, for everyone.
And this is a live look at Manchester, New Hampshire tonight, where, as you could see, people continue to patiently wait and cast their ballot there. Now, closer to home, there are hundreds of thousands of eligible U.S. voters living in Canada, and many of them are right here in the city of Toronto.
Yeah, and they're having some really interesting conversations. For more on how those discussions are going, let's bring in CP24's Sija Liu tonight. Sija.
Good afternoon. Well, people are feeling anxious but also excited, particularly the Americans living right here in Toronto, many of whom have cast their ballots, and now all they can do is sit back and wait for those very close results to pour in. Now, there are roughly 600,000 Americans living in Canada, which is the largest group of eligible voters outside the U.S. And with the election being too close to call, both parties recognize that a single ballot can't go uncast in today's election. Now, earlier this hour, we spoke to Democrats abroad Canada who said point blank this group of Americans overseas living in Canada could be a deciding factor in the outcome of today's election. Over the past few months, their team has spent a lot of money pouring into digital ads, knocking on doors, making phone calls to make sure that people here in Canada get out and vote. And many Americans tonight are also holding election parties as they wait for those results to pour in. And earlier today, we spoke to people walking around the U.S. consulate today, both Americans and Canadians, on how they are feeling. Here's what they had to say.
I was hoping that Harris wins the elections because we have better ties with the democracy than with the Trump party.
Yes, definitely will be close. I just wish that, people stay calm. There is no things that are, that could impact the safety of people. But for the rest, as I said, I will just live with the result of this election. We're in Canada, so we cannot do much about it.
And with huge issues like immigration, trade, climate policies at stake, the U.S. voters here in Canada know their vote carries a lot of weight at this point. But right now, all they can do is sit back and wait for those results to pour in. And fortunately, from what we've heard, there have been no major issues when it comes to casting their mail-in ballots. Back to you.
All right, Sija Liu reporting live for us tonight. Sija, thanks so much for this. Turning to some other stories we are following for you. 5:38, 22 degrees. Let's get a check on that drive home. Adjo NCA keeping a close eye on that. Hey, Adj.
I am, and it has been a busy afternoon, and problems continue on the westbound lanes of the Gardiner, just past Jameson, just past the construction zone. So you think you're getting relief, you're not really. We're dealing with a collision past Jameson that does have the left lane blocked. A couple of vehicles involved in this, and this is what it's doing to the drive. Traffic not moving now from well before Cherry Street. Headed towards the DVP, you're looking at delays from Bayview Bloor up to the 401, and you know what? A bunch of my 401 cameras have gone out, so it looks like I'm just going to have to tell you about issues I'm seeing. So on the northbound lanes of the 410, just as you make your way through Steeles, collision blocking the HOV and the two left lanes. And on the eastbound 401 in the Express, past Keele, crews on scene of a collision there. It does have the center lane occupied. I'll send it back to you, Lena and Kayla.
All right, Adjoa, thanks so much. One person has been critically injured after a collision in Brampton.
This is a look at the two-vehicle crash near Airport Road and Clark Boulevard. Now, Peel police say one person was extracted from one of those vehicles. Two people have been injured, one taken to hospital with critical injuries and another with minor. Now, road closures are in place for this investigation. Now, security remains tight at a Hindu temple in Brampton. Police were called 2 days in a row now to disperse protesters.
Yeah, CTV Toronto's Raheem Ladani joins us live with more on this developing story. Raheem, so many chaotic images coming out of this latest protest. What can you tell us today?
Lena and Kayla, good evening. I can tell you that security has stepped up. In fact, there's a security team that has been here all throughout the day monitoring who's been coming in and out of the Hindu Sabha temple here in Brampton. In fact, a few moments ago, we actually received a notice from the president of the temple here who says they have suspended one of their priests because of his alleged involvement in spreading violent rhetoric over the last few days. And so you mentioned those images that we saw coming out yesterday from here in Brampton on the Gore Road. There were people throwing debris at police officers, even brandishing what appears to be swords. We did speak with some individuals from this community, from the Hindu community, and they say that they were not involved in any violence and that they were trying to protect themselves, and they condemn any violence that did take place. And that's what we're hearing a lot of from both sides, from the Sikh community and the Hindu community. And we spoke with Mayor Patrick Brown today, and he says that there are bad apples on both sides and that they do need to be held accountable, but that for the most most part, it's the individuals in these communities that want to live in peace and they don't want any part of this violence, and that there is a lot of foreign interference here and there, saying that the Indian government is partially to blame.
All right, Raheem Ladani reporting live for us from Brampton. Raheem, thanks so much for this.
You're welcome.
And Peel police are appealing for dash cam footage as they investigate a deadly shooting in Brampton last month.
Yeah, it happened at an industrial plaza on Rutherford Road shortly after 6 a.m. on Saturday, October 19th. 22-year-old Marsha Khadija Sharma was found fatally shot in an SUV. 3 other people were wounded. Police are trying to identify a suspect vehicle that fled the scene. They'd like to hear from anybody with a dash cam equipped vehicle who's driving on Rutherford Road between Queen Street and Steeles Avenue between 5 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. on October 19th.
Well, security footage has been released of a violent home invasion in Nobleton that left a man seriously injured.
Yeah, York police are sharing footage from inside that home on Paradise Valley Trail, showing a suspect fire a single shot. The 2 suspects wearing reflective construction shirts then scramble to get away.
Now, the shooting happened just before 6:30 last night. Police say a neighbor was shot while trying to help a woman who was inside the home at the time. The 39-year-old man was seriously injured but is expected to survive.
We always remind citizens that if they do witness a violent offense, a violent crime, to contact 911 right away. I can't speak for his actions, what he did last night, but again, you can just imagine the shock and fear that he would have had being confronted by an armed suspect.
Investigators say the suspects got away in a pickup truck. Anybody who recognizes them is asked to come forward.
And police are trying to identify suspects after a fire was set inside of a movie theater in Richmond Hill. Take a look at this footage.
Yeah, footage shows 2 people entering York Cinemas near East Beaver Creek and Highway 7 just after 11 o'clock Sunday night. A blue bag is set down near a wall before the suspects can be seen throwing what police describe as Molotov cocktails at the bag. The suspects then run to their getaway vehicle, which police say was an Acura RDX stolen out of Toronto 5 days prior. The fire was extinguished by the sprinkler system. Thankfully, no injuries.
5:43 and 22 degrees outside. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, the latest from Etobicoke, where police are searching for a missing woman. We're going to have those details next.
Police are asking for help finding a missing Etobicoke woman. 33-year-old Sarah was reported missing yesterday morning. Now, police and family are concerned for her safety because this hasn't happened before. And Sarah, she lives with a serious medical condition.
We have released a photo of Sarah to the public, and we are asking for your assistance. If people that live in the area can check their backyards for anywhere that Sarah could have found shelter overnight, as she has been missing for over 24 hours. We have recently received information that Sarah was seen yesterday, Monday, November 4th, at approximately 2 p.m. in the area of Bloor Street West and the Old Mill Road. Anyone that lives in that area, if we can ask for your assistance, and again, check your properties, anybody that has seen Sarah, any businesses or anybody that has video footage can contact us.
A police command post has been set up in the Bloor and Old Mill area. The Marine Unit and Mounted Unit are both taking part in the search for Sarah, including along the Humber River.
Well, Sarah is described as 5 feet tall with black hair. She was last seen wearing a blue coat, jogging top, black boots, and gold bracelets. Anybody with information about her whereabouts is asked to get in touch with investigators.
And municipal workers in Brampton will be in a legal strike position in just a couple of days. QP Local 831 represents 1,200 City of Brampton employees, including City Hall services, courthouse services, building inspections, and permits, as well as parks and recreation services. Now, they will be in a legal strike position at 12:01 a.m. as of Thursday. The city could also lock them out. Now, the union says contract issues include seasonal workers and keeping public services public.
Well, at Queen's Park today, the NDP accused the PCs of failing to get affordable housing built.
Here's what happens in Ontario today. The Premier cuts deals, insiders cash in, and regular Ontarians pay the price every single time. There's always time and money for schemes like a $100 billion tunnel to nowhere and luxury spas in downtown Toronto, but investing in housing that people can actually afford, they can't even imagine it.
What they're contemplating, Mr. Speaker, is, by our calculations, an over $150 billion program that will create literally no homes, Mr. Speaker. Instead, what we're doing is we're building infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, so that we can unleash not hundreds of homes, not thousands of homes, but millions of homes for the people of the province of Ontario.
And the issue of bike lanes also came up at Queen's Park today, and who will cover the cost of removing them. The transportation minister says that the government will work with municipalities.
All right, it's 5:49, 22 degrees. You're watching Live at 5. Our top story today, Americans have a big decision to make tonight. We're giving you a live shot from a polling location in Erie, Pennsylvania, as millions of Americans make their voices heard. Stay with us as our coverage continues of this historic American election.
Great. Hi, guys.
Hi. Want to make sure that you are still at a popular restaurant in Washington. That's what the throw says.
She looks like she's at a popular
That's
spot.
right. Oh, you are? Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. Now we see you.
She's about to have
great.
a burger and shake, it looks like.
Okay, I hope you're hungry. Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. Talk soon.
Continuing with our top story, as Americans continue to head to polling stations to choose their next president.
Yeah, and for more on this, we're joined live by CTV's Anne-Marie Medawake, who is at a popular Washington restaurant to share the mood of voters. Great to see you, Anne-Marie. What's on the menu where you are?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm not just at any restaurant. I am at a national treasure and an iconic spot here in Washington, D.C. This is Ben's Chili Bowl, although there's a lot more than just chili on the menu. This has been a gathering place for celebrities, entertainers, local citizens, presidents, leaders of the civil rights movement have all been eating here since it was founded in 1958. Now, I don't know, Stephen, if you can see it. This is Virginia Ali. She's one of the co-founders, 90 years young. She and I had a great conversation earlier this evening about the conversation she had with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Before the March on Washington, and the conversations they had there about hopes and dreams for America. You know, and Stephen, if you just pan right over here, a much younger President Barack Obama, when he was still president-elect, came here as one of his first stops in Washington to enjoy, as she tells me, his order was a half smoke, fries, and a soft drink. But this place is a real gathering spot, not only tonight, but throughout history, for people to come and discuss hopes and dreams for the country. This is about, I would say, about 8 blocks away from Howard University, which is, of course, the headquarters for Vice President Kamala Harris for tonight. Events start there around 9 o'clock, but there are already people lined up outside ready to get in, and they tell me they're going to be open like they've been always open, and they are expecting it to be very, very busy here tonight.
Wow.
Anne-Marie, how would you describe the mood or the vibe, if you will, inside that restaurant? As you noted, so many iconic people have come in and out there, but really it kind of feels like it's business as usual behind you there.
Well, I mean, I don't think Ben slows down for anything, quite frankly. I think no matter what is going on in the country, this is always this busy. But I will say, I've noticed throughout the day, and here as well, there's this dance between hope and concern. I asked people if they're worried about what could happen in the city tonight, depending on the outcome of the election, and they say, I'm not worried, but I'm concerned, and they're watching. You know, this city, post-January 6th, was really changed, and so what they thought would never happen here in the city, it happened. So there's a bit of concern and of attitude or feeling of hopefulness. You know, the polls, the numbers are going to start to come in a little bit later. They've got some screens up here in the restaurant. People are going to gather, and they're going to watch. And that's, I would guess, sort of the mood, is that feeling of anticipation, not only for what the outcome could be, but what might happen in the hours and days after.
Yeah, you've sort of been talking, Anne-Marie, throughout the day about how security is really so tight where you are. Some businesses beginning to board up their windows. We know there's security fencing around the White House. Can you talk about that increased security presence?
Yeah, and in fact, around Howard University as well, that same riot fencing, the anti-climb fencing, that's gone up as well. And we are just being told, we've been getting different emails from the city, that there is a perimeter that's going to be blocked off around Howard University, not to pedestrian traffic, just to vehicle traffic. So that's already happening. There are police vehicles there blocking it to road traffic. It is open for foot traffic. They are expecting, they say, around 50,000 people to be out at Howard University throughout the evening. And events will start there at around 9 o'clock. I think it's when the entertainment starts. They're going to start allowing people in.
Hope you get to eat after this, Anne-Marie.
Guys, I'm having the Obama order. I'm having a half smoke with some fries and a drink.
Oh,
it's going to be a long night.
Delicious. All right, Anne-Marie Meadowake live in Washington, D.C. for us tonight, continuing our coverage. Thanks so much. Now, on Parliament Hill, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was asked about the election prior to question period.
My job as Canadian Prime Minister has always been to work with whomever the Americans elect to be their president and make sure that I'm standing up for Canadian values, Canadian interests, and Canadian jobs. And that's exactly what I'm going to continue to do.
5:56 and 22 degrees. This is Live at 5. Well, coming up, the Maple Leafs will be without their captain tonight as they try to put the brakes on a losing skid. Austin Matthews is listed as day-to-day with an upper body injury and will not be playing tonight. Toronto is coming off of a 2-1 overtime loss to the Minnesota Wild on Sunday. Tonight, they'll take on the Boston Bruins squad that has won 2 in a row. Puck drop is set for 7 p.m. Are in action tonight, but the team is going to be without a key player on the ice. That story is coming up next.